Year after year, we keep getting live-action remakes, and year after year, they tend to disappoint us. And I find myself asking the question, why do we see live-action as a superior form of media compared to animation? If you haven't watched my Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse video, I recommend doing so, as I am going to be continuing on from that video into this one. Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse is seen as one of the greatest comic book films of all time, and now with its sequel, it truly proves how animation is timeless. As a guy who loves the original Sam Raimi Spider-Man films, the first one particularly has some, let's say, outdated moments, but animation from 50 years ago still looks incredible to this day. Its sequel, Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse, improves from the last film in an incredible way, to once again make one of the best animated comic book films of all time. Hello, it's me, the Average Critic. Make sure to subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Also, a spoiler warning is in effect, so you have been warned, and let's talk about Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse, an artistic dream. Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse adds from his second film in so many ways. First, the animation on screen is once again incredible. I really hope to see this art style in more animated films, as it is starting to branch out into films like Puss in Boots: The Last Wish. The mix of 3D animation with a blend of 2D animation style and effects for me is a great step in a wonderful direction for animation, and it is gorgeous to watch, especially on the big screen. But not even just the animation, but the artistic style of every world that Miles goes to has its own quirks that I love. My personal favourite being Spider-Gwen's world, as the watercolour effects of the world change depending on how Gwen is feeling, and I loved every aspect of that. To work on a film where not just the characters have style but also the world around them is an incredible thing. There are so many brilliant artistic choices on screen, and it's almost like the animators are just showing off, and I really love that. It's like, yeah bitch, you can't do this in live action. But in all seriousness, the artistry in this film is some of the greatest work I've ever seen on screen. The cinematography, the art direction, it is awe-inspiring. The whole world is just beautiful to watch, and every world feels different and unique. Something I never thought I would talk about on this channel, and I don't know if this film did it intentionally, is the diversity in this film. Due to the amount of Spider-Man on screen, the diversity in this film is incredible, and it is the best possible way you can do it. You can always tell when films just do diversity for diversity's sake, but this film does not feel in any way like that. This film has a female Spider-Man, an Indian Spider-Man, a British Spider-Man, black, Spanish, and seeing all of them together from different backgrounds and nationalities, it made me absolutely love it. It doesn't feel forced, it feels wonderful, it works for the story, and it is incredible. Peter Parker is my favourite Spider-Man, but holy shit, seeing all the others is absolutely amazing, and it's one of the best things about the movie for me. This whole film made every Spider-Man my favourite. Gwen Stacy does get more time to grow in this film, and is definitely one of my favourite parts of the film. She does an incredible job at almost carrying some of the movie, if not most of it. Don't get me wrong, Miles does it as well, but Spider-Gwen is amazing. Speaking of all the Spider characters, let's talk about the ones that voice them, as the entire cast do an incredible job at voicing these characters. Everyone does an amazing job at bringing these characters to life, and this film has a lot of dialogue, and there's just great moments of characters just talking. Something I think a lot of comic book films are afraid to do is allow their characters to just sit down, have a conversation without a giant action sequence happening every 5 minutes. I loved all the conversations between Miles and Gwen, as the chemistry of these two characters really comes through, and they really are some of my favourite moments. All the characters feel so fleshed out and real, and considering how many there are, every single character feels necessary to the story, they all have their own arcs and plots, and for the filmmakers to pull that off is an achievement in itself. Considering how many comic book films have failed due to such an overabundance of characters, then it shows when it's done right, it can be successful. The film also carries on its themes from the original of being an individual and what it means to be a hero and Spider-Man, but also creating some new ones along the way. Miles' story is such a daring one, and it almost offers more, as we have now seen the Peter Parker storyline in films 3 times, and even more in TV series. But Miles Morales being a character which isn't as well known makes it all feel so fresh. You never know what his decision is going to be, and it makes it feel like you're learning the character as the story progresses. Like the last film, they use the character of Miles to their advantage, offering up that Miles is different from Peter. He tells his own story, he has his own unique powers, and he has a different viewpoint to Peter. Even in something like the soundtrack for this film, it is massively different than any other Spider-Man film we have seen with Peter Parker. For a film that has the multiverse at the center of its plot, the film isn't just multiverse for the sake of multiverse and fun cameos, something I think the MCU is really struggling to do. Once the concept of multiverse comes into play, how do you make a personal story about an individual? Funnily enough, I think the only MCU film that has actually done this successfully is Spider-Man No Way Home, but even then it doesn't do it as half as good as this film. A show like Rick and Morty uses the concept of multiverse to tell a meaningful story about individualism, and these films also do that. Using the concept as a theme for your movie is incredible and allows for some very touching moments for every single one of our characters. Once again, this film shows how animation is sometimes, if not all the time, better than live action. That's not to say live action isn't good or even important, of course it is, but this film proves that animation is timeless, and sometimes the better way to do your movie, especially when it comes to comic book adaptations, animation is the way forward. It definitely brings a new freshness to it. Like, everyone is raving about the new Harry Potter series that has just been announced on HBO, and I think I'm the only one that think it would definitely do better or at least be more interesting if it was animated. With all that being said though, I do have to talk about the runtime of this movie. At 2 hours and 16 minutes, it is a long-ass massive movie, especially for an animated one. It is really weird because the pacing can feel really slow sometimes, but every time it does slow the scene down, it feels so necessary and central to the plot as it adds more layers to these characters. I would rather have a film that feels slow but necessary than quick but unnecessary. This is something I do think modern MCU films struggle these days, as they are so afraid to place characters in a scene and just let them talk. It's all just a CGI fest of action sequences. So as much as the pacing can feel slow, I love that the film takes its time with its story as it understands the grandeur of the story it's telling. If a live action film like Avengers Endgame can be 3 hours long, why can't an animation film be 2 hours and 16 minutes? This film is the 19th longest animated film to date, with every film above it being anime. It's interesting how Japan is almost the only place in the world that has accepted animation as an incredible form of art. So if they can do it, why not us? This film adds more from its predecessor and proves how important animation is. With its longer runtime, it will hopefully prove how successful animation can be in the Western market, and definitely with more mature audiences. Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse is equally one of the best animated films ever. It's definitely one of the greatest comic book movies, that's to be damn sure, and I cannot wait for the third movie. So after all that, it gets my professional rating of 9 out of 10. And it gets my personal rating of 9 out of 10 as well. It's getting the same score as I gave the last one, as both are incredible films, and yep, I cannot wait for that third movie. So thank you for joining me in this video. Let me know in the comment section what you thought of Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse, and if you enjoyed this video, make sure to subscribe to the channel so you can help this channel grow, and be sure to follow me on all my social media platforms as well. Thank you for joining me in this video, and I will see you all in the next one.